Queen Zarathek stood before the massive observation deck of her flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the blue-green planet slowly rotate below. Her 6 eyes, each a different shade of violet, studied the world that had defied her empire for 3 cycles now, Earth, such a simple name for a world that had become the greatest thorn in her side across 5 galaxies. The Veltar Empire had conquered over 4,000 worlds. Each one had fallen within days, sometimes hours. Their species always followed the same pattern: initial resistance, desperate negotiation attempts, and finally, inevitable surrender. But these humans were different. They fought with a ferocity that puzzled her military advisors and a creativity that frustrated her best strategists. "My queen," General Krixtal approached, his massive frame casting shadows across the deck. His scarred exoskeleton told stories of countless battles, but even he seemed uncertain when discussing the humans. "Our scouts report another unsuccessful assault on the Luna colony. The humans have somehow turned their mining equipment into weapons that pierce our shields." Zarathek clicked her mandibles in annoyance. The Luna colony should have been an easy target, a small mining outpost with minimal defenses. Yet somehow the humans had held it for weeks against her elite forces. "How many ships did we lose this time?" 12 destroyers and a battlecruiser. "My queen." The humans used something they called Project Slingshot. They somehow accelerated asteroids using their mining equipment and... Krixtal paused, his voice dropping. "They turned space debris into kinetic weapons that our computers couldn't track properly." The queen's primary eyes narrowed. In her 300 cycles of life, she had never encountered a species that could improvise so effectively. Her empire's strength came from superior technology and overwhelming numbers. They had weapons that could crack planets, shields that could deflect the energy of stars, and ships that moved faster than light itself. Yet these humans, with their primitive technology, kept finding ways to hurt her forces. "Show me the battle recordings again," she commanded. The holographic display materialized before them, showing the Luna colony battle from multiple angles. Zarathek watched as human miners, people who should have been helpless civilians, coordinated with military precision. They had somehow networked their mining lasers to create a focused beam array. Their excavation charges had been repurposed into proximity mines that crippled her ship's navigation systems. But what struck her most was their communication during the battle. Her translators had decoded their radio chatter, and instead of the panic she expected, she heard laughter. These humans were actually enjoying the fight. One of them had said something about giving the bugs a taste of human engineering, while another had joked about overtime pay for alien pest control. "My queen," Communications Officer Ithara interrupted. "We're receiving another transmission from the human leadership on Earth. They're requesting another negotiation session." Zarathek had been dreading this. The humans had a disturbing habit of requesting diplomatic talks, not to surrender, but to make demands. Their previous negotiations had resulted in them demanding she withdraw from 3 star systems, provide reparations for invasion damages, and somehow, impossibly, they had convinced 2 of her tributary species to switch sides. "Put them through," she said, settling into her command throne. The hologram of Admiral Sarah Chen materialized before her. The human woman looked tired but determined, her dark eyes holding an intensity that made Zarathek uncomfortable. Behind her stood several other humans, all wearing the simple blue uniforms of their space fleet. "Your Majesty," Admiral Chen began with a slight bow that somehow managed to seem more mocking than respectful. "I trust you received our proposal regarding the Proxima system. You want me to withdraw my forces from a system I have legally conquered according to galactic law," Zarathek replied. "In exchange, you offer to not blow up any more of my ships this week." "This is hardly a negotiation, Admiral." Admiral Chen smiled, and that smile sent an unexpected chill through the Queen's spine. "Your Majesty, with respect, I don't think you understand your situation. We've been studying your empire for months now. We know about your other campaigns, your supply lines, your military doctrine. We also know something else." The human paused, and Zarathek found herself leaning forward despite herself. "We know you're not just conquering worlds for resources or territory. You're running from something. Your empire isn't expanding, it's fleeing. The question is, from what?" The bridge fell silent. Zarathek felt her secondary heart skip a beat. How could these primitive beings possibly know about the Shadow Fleet? About the ancient enemy that had been pursuing her people across the galaxy for generations? I don't know what you think you've discovered, Zarathek said carefully, but your assumptions are incorrect. Are they? Admiral Chen's smile widened. Because we've detected energy signatures at the edge of your territory that don't match any known technology. Signatures that are making your ships nervous. Your fleet positioning suggests you're preparing for something much worse than a fight with us. Zarathex's mind raced. If the humans knew about the shadows, they might also know why her empire had been so desperate to find new territories, new resources, new allies. The Veltar had been running for so long that conquest had become their only strategy for survival. Let me make you a different offer, Admiral Chen continued. Instead of demanding your surrender, we want to propose an alliance. The word hit Zarathex like a plasma bolt. Alliance? No species had ever proposed an alliance with the Veltar Empire. They conquered or were conquered. There was no middle ground. You're serious, Zarathex said slowly. Deadly serious. We humans have a saying. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. If something out there is big enough to scare your empire into running across half the galaxy, then it's definitely big enough to threaten Earth. We'd rather face it as allies than as enemies. As Admiral Chen spoke, Zarathex realized that everything she thought she knew about humans was wrong. They weren't just fighting her invasion, they were thinking several steps ahead, preparing for threats they'd never even seen. Their resistance wasn't desperation. It was calculation. For the first time in centuries, Queen Zarathex felt something she had almost forgotten: hope. 3 days had passed since Admiral Chen's shocking proposal, and Zarathex found herself in her private chambers, staring at reports that made no sense. Her intelligence division had been working around the clock to verify the humans' claims about the Shadow Fleet, and what they discovered shook her to her core. The humans hadn't just detected the shadows, they had been tracking them for months. Somehow, with their primitive technology, they had mapped Shadow Fleet movements across 17 star systems. They knew patrol routes, fleet compositions, and most impossibly, they seemed to understand Shadow tactical doctrine better than the Veltar themselves. My queen, her chief intelligence officer, Nixara, entered with another data pad. Her usual confidence was replaced by bewilderment. The humans have sent us detailed analysis of shadow weapons signatures. Their conclusions about shadow shield frequencies they're more accurate than our own research department's findings. Zarathex took the pad with trembling claws. The humans had somehow determined that shadow shields operated on rotational frequency patterns that changed every 3.7 seconds. Her own scientists had spent decades trying to crack that code and had estimated the rotation at 4.1 seconds, close enough to be useless in actual combat. How is this possible? She whispered. That's not the strangest part, my queen. Nixara activated a holographic display. They've also sent us tactical recommendations. Look at this. The display showed a 3-dimensional battle simulation. Human ships, laughably small compared to Veltar vessels, were engaging Shadow Fleet units using tactics that Zarathex had never seen before. Instead of the traditional formation battles that dominated galactic warfare, the humans were using something they called swarm tactics. Hundreds of small, fast ships moved in seemingly random patterns around the larger shadow vessels. But as Zarathex watched, she realized the chaos was an illusion. Each human ship was part of a larger pattern, like individual neurons in a vast brain. When shadow ships tried to target them, they would scatter, only to reform somewhere else and strike from an unexpected angle. They're treating space combat like... Zarathex paused, searching for the right analogy. Like hunting pack animals. The simulation suggests these tactics could be 73% more effective against Shadow Fleet units than our current strategy, Nixara added. My queen, if they're correct, we could actually win battles against the shadows instead of just delaying them. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the display, but this time she was flanked by different humans, scientists and engineers based on their clothing. Your Majesty, Chen began. I hope you've had time to review our tactical analysis. Dr. Martinez here has something she'd like to share with you. A woman with graying hair and intense eyes stepped forward. Your Majesty, my team has been studying the energy patterns your ships emit during combat. We've noticed something interesting about how shadows track their targets. Dr. Martinez activated her own holographic display, showing wave pattern analysis that made Zarathex's technical advisors lean forward in interest. Shadow targeting systems aren't actually superior to yours, the human scientist continued. They're just different. They track quantum resonance patterns that your ship hulls naturally emit. But we've discovered that certain mineral compositions can mask these signatures. Impossible, General Krickstall interjected. We've tried every form of stealth technology. Nothing can hide from shadow sensors. Dr. Martinez smiled. You've been thinking about it wrong, General. You can't hide the quantum signature, but you can muddy it. Think of it like trying to hear a specific conversation in a crowded restaurant. If you add enough similar conversations, the original becomes impossible to isolate. She manipulated the display to show a new ship design, sleek, angular, and covered in hexagonal panels. These are quantum resonance scramblers. Each panel generates false quantum signatures. Install enough of them on your ships, and shadow sensors will detect thousands of phantom targets. They won't be able to tell which readings are real. Zarathex stared at the design, her mind racing. The concept was brilliant in its simplicity. Her engineers had been trying to eliminate quantum signatures entirely, an impossible task. But the humans had found a way to hide the signal in the noise. Why are you helping us? She asked suddenly. Your species barely knows us. We've been trying to conquer your world. Why share technology that could help us win a war? Admiral Chen exchanged glances with her team before answering. Because, Your Majesty, we've been monitoring Shadow Fleet communications. We know they're not just chasing your empire. They're heading for the local cluster, our part of the galaxy. Earth is directly in their path. The revelation hit Zarathex like a physical blow. The shadows weren't just pursuing the Veltar anymore. They were expanding their hunt. How long do we have? She asked quietly. Based on their current speed and trajectory, they'll reach the outer edge of human space in 18 months, Dr. Martinez replied. But they'll encounter Veltar territory first. If your empire falls, there's nothing between them and Earth except empty space. Zarathex understood now. The humans weren't being altruistic. They were being practical. In helping the Veltar survive, they were building a buffer between Earth and annihilation. There's more, Admiral Chen continued. We've been studying historical records of shadow invasions. Every species they've conquered had one thing in common. They fought alone. The shadows have never faced a coordinated multi-species defense. They've never dealt with combined tactics, shared technology, or integrated fleet operations. You're proposing more than just an alliance, Zarathex realized. You're proposing we fundamentally change how galactic warfare works. Exactly. Your empire has the ships and the numbers. We have the tactical innovation and the stealth technology. Together, we might actually stand a chance. General Krickstall stepped forward. My queen, this is unprecedented. No empire in galactic history has ever shared military secrets with a potential enemy. But we're not enemies anymore, are we? Admiral Chen interjected. We have a common threat that's bigger than both our species. The question isn't whether we can trust each other. The question is whether we can afford not to. Zarathex looked around her bridge at her officers. She saw the same expression on every face, a mixture of hope and terror. Hope that they might finally have found a way to stop running. Terror that they were about to bet their entire civilization on an alliance with beings they barely understood. Admiral Chen, she said finally, what exactly are you proposing? The human smiled grimly. We propose Operation Unity, joint fleet exercises, shared technology development, and coordinated battle plans. We'll teach you our swarm tactics. You'll teach us your shield technologies. And when the shadows arrive, they won't face the Veltar Empire or humanity. They'll face something that's never existed before in this galaxy, a true alliance of equals. As Zarathex considered the proposal, she realized that the humans had already changed everything. They had turned an invasion into a negotiation, conquest into cooperation. Perhaps they could work the same miracle against the shadows. 6 weeks into Operation Unity, Zarathex stood on the observation deck of Starbase Harmony, a jointly constructed space station orbiting Earth's moon. The name still amused her. Humans had an odd obsession with meaningful names for everything. But as she watched Veltar and human ships conducting synchronized maneuvers in the space around them, she had to admit the name was appropriate. The changes had been remarkable. Her engineers were working alongside human technicians to retrofit shadow scramblers onto Veltar destroyers. Human pilots were learning to operate Veltar fighter craft, their smaller frames actually giving them advantages in the cramped cockpits. Most surprisingly, her own tactical officers had begun adopting human military slang. And she'd caught General Crixtell using the human phrase, "Let's rock and roll," during yesterday's battle simulation. "Your Majesty," Commander Sarah Kim approached. She was Admiral Chen's niece and had been assigned as Zarathex's human liaison officer. The young woman had proven remarkably adept at understanding Veltar military protocol, while simultaneously challenging it in productive ways. The test results from the prototype vessels are ready for review. They walked together toward the station's command center, a marvel of hybrid architecture that somehow blended Veltar crystalline growth patterns with human geometric efficiency. The room buzzed with activity as members of both species worked side by side, their different languages and communication styles somehow harmonizing into effective coordination. Admiral Chen stood before a massive holographic display showing the test results from their first joint combat exercises. The data was extraordinary. The hybrid tactics had proven 340% more effective against simulated shadow fleet formations than either species' traditional approaches. "Show her the Zulu Squadron results," Commander Kim suggested. Admiral Chen nodded and pulled up footage from yesterday's exercise. Zulu Squadron was an experimental unit composed entirely of human pilots, flying modified Veltar fighters equipped with shadow scramblers. Zarathex watched in amazement as the small craft performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. The human pilots had taken her people's superior technology and pushed it beyond its original design parameters. They flew in formations that looked chaotic, but created overlapping sensor ghosts that confused targeting computers. When the simulated shadow ships tried to lock onto them, the targeting systems registered thousands of false contacts. "How are they doing this?" she asked. "They call it coordinated chaos," Admiral Chen explained. "Each pilot follows a base pattern but improvises variations in real time. The shadow targeting AI can't predict their movements because the pilots themselves don't know exactly what they're going to do next." Dr. Martinez joined them at the display. "It's based on something humans call jazz music, structured improvisation. There's a framework, but each performer adds their own interpretation within that structure." Zarathex struggled to understand the concept. Veltar military doctrine was built on precision, predictability, and overwhelming force. The idea of intentional unpredictability seemed contradictory to effective tactics. But how do they avoid colliding with each other if they're improvising? "Practice and trust," Commander Kim answered. Human fighter pilots trained together for years. They learned to read each other's flying styles, to anticipate reactions without formal communication. It's like a dance where everyone knows the rhythm but adds their own steps. The display shifted to show Veltar ships using the new tactics. The results were less impressive but still remarkable. Veltar pilots were learning to incorporate controlled improvisation into their flight patterns, though they approached it more systematically than their human counterparts. "We've had an interesting development," Admiral Chen continued. "Some of your younger pilots are actually adapting faster than we expected. Lieutenant Kexara in particular has shown remarkable aptitude for human-style tactics." Zarathex was surprised. Kexara was barely past her hatching cycle, considered too young for anything beyond basic patrol duties. "Show me her performance data." The display changed to show a young Veltar pilot engaging multiple simulated targets. Her movements were fluid, creative, and utterly unlike traditional Veltar flying. She combined the precision of her species training with something that looked almost playful. "She says she learned by watching human entertainment videos," Commander Kim added with amusement. "Something called aerial acrobatics competitions. She's been studying how humans perform complex maneuvers for sport and applying those principles to combat flying." The concept astounded Zarathex. Humans perform dangerous aerial maneuvers for entertainment, with no military purpose whatsoever. Yet somehow this recreational activity had produced insights that improved combat effectiveness. "There's something else you need to see," Dr. Martinez said, her expression growing serious. "We've detected Shadow Fleet communications increasing near the Helix Nebula. They're not just moving in our direction anymore. They're accelerating." The display showed a star map with Shadow Fleet positions marked in red. The enemy forces were indeed moving faster than predicted, and their formation had changed. Instead of the scattered pursuit fleet that had been chasing the Veltar for decades, they had consolidated into a massive invasion armada. "How much time do we have?" Zarathex asked. 8 months, maybe 10 if we're lucky," Admiral Chen replied. But there's something else. The shadow communications we've intercepted suggest they're not just planning to continue their pursuit of your empire. They're planning a full-scale invasion of the local cluster. General Krikstal, who had been quietly observing the data, stepped forward. My queen, the shadow fleet size has tripled since we began monitoring them. They're calling in reinforcements from across their territory. Because they see us as a genuine threat now, Dr. Martinez added. Our alliance has changed their strategy. They're not just hunting the Veltar anymore. They see the potential for organized resistance and they want to crush it before it can spread to other species. The implications were staggering. The alliance that was supposed to protect both their species had instead made them the primary target of the Shadow Fleet's full attention. So we've made things worse, Zarathek said quietly. No, Admiral Chen corrected firmly. We've forced them to show their true intentions. They were always planning to expand into this region of the galaxy. We've just made them do it sooner and with more force than they originally intended. Commander Kim pulled up another display showing their current military assets. The good news is that we're not just sitting around waiting for them. The Unity fleet now consists of over 2,000 vessels, and that number is growing every day. We've got joint shipyards producing hybrid designs that neither species could have built alone. Zarathek studied the fleet composition data. The numbers were impressive, but she knew they would still be outnumbered by the Shadow Fleet at least 3-1. Numbers won't be enough, she said. You're right, Dr. Martinez agreed. But we have something the Shadows have never encountered before. We have genuine cooperation between species, with completely different approaches to warfare. They've conquered dozens of civilizations, but always individually. They've never faced coordinated multi-species tactics. Admiral Chen stepped forward. Your Majesty, we want to propose the next phase of Operation Unity. We call it Project Mosaic. The display changed to show a complex battle plan involving not just human and Veltar forces, but signals from other species in the region. Zarathek recognized some of the signatures. The crystalline Gelnari, the gaseous entities known as the Drift Collective, even some of the mechanical intelligences from the Outer Rim. You want to expand the alliance, Zarathek realized. Every species the Shadows have ever conquered fought alone, Admiral Chen said. But what if they didn't have to? What if for the first time in galactic history, dozens of species stood together against a common threat? The scope of the proposal was breathtaking and terrifying. If it worked, it would revolutionize galactic civilization. If it failed, every species involved would be wiped out. The Shadows aren't just our enemy anymore, Commander Kim added. They're the enemy of every free species in the galaxy. It's time to remind them what that means. The Council of Unity had grown beyond anything Zarathek could have imagined when she first agreed to Admiral Chen's proposal 3 months ago. The massive conference chamber aboard Starbase Harmony now hosted representatives from 47 different species, each bringing their own unique capabilities and perspectives to the growing alliance. Zarathek found herself seated between Admiral Chen and Ambassador Vexthul of the crystalline hegemony. The crystal beings communicated through harmonic frequencies that created beautiful, otherworldly music when they spoke. To her right sat the gaseous form of Drift Leader Whisper of Stars, whose thoughts manifested as shifting colors in their containment field. The Shadow Fleet has reached the Kepler Junction, reported Commander Kim, her voice cutting through the multilingual discussion. The holographic display showed the latest reconnaissance data, a massive armada of dark ships moving through space like a plague of locusts, consuming everything in their path. 6 weeks ahead of schedule, muttered Dr. Martinez. She had aged visibly during the preparation period, the stress of coordinating technology sharing between dozens of incompatible species taking its toll. The mechanical intelligence designated Theorem Prime spoke through its translation matrix. Shadow Fleet acceleration suggests tactical adjustment. They perceive the growing alliance as significant threat. Calculate 73.2% probability they will attempt to prevent further coalition expansion through preemptive strikes. Ambassador Vexthul's harmonic response translated as, the crystalline hegemony's deep space sensors confirm massive shadow reinforcements approaching from the galactic core. They bring weapons we have not seen before. Whisper of Stars' colors shifted to deep purple and red, colors that the translators indicated meant grave concern. Our scouts phase shifted through shadow formations report ships that consume stellar energy directly. They may be planning to drain power from our star systems themselves. The revelation sent a chill through the chamber. Star-eating weapons were theoretical nightmares that most species believed impossible to construct. "How long before they reach the outer colonies?" asked Admiral Chen. 4 weeks to the Proxima Defense Line, General Krixtal responded. 6 weeks to Earth and Veltar core systems. Zarathek stood, her 6 eyes scanning the assembled representatives. "Then we implement Operation Mosaic immediately. All species, all fleets, coordinated strike." A chittering sound came from the insectoid delegate of the hive clusters. The translation appeared on everyone's displays. Hive Queens question wisdom of direct confrontation. Shadow Fleet maintains 4.7 to 1 numerical superiority. Losses will be catastrophic. "Then what do you suggest?" Admiral Chen asked. "We've tried running from them for decades. It doesn't work." The Hive delegate's response surprised everyone. "Humans demonstrate successful irregular warfare tactics. Apply ant swarm methodology on galactic scale. Many small strikes, not one large battle." Dr. Martinez leaned forward with interest. "Distributed resistance instead of concentrated defense." "It could work," Theorem Prime's mechanical voice added. "Quantum analysis supports insectoid proposal. Shadow tactical doctrine optimized for fleet engagement. Small unit actions create exponential targeting complexities." Zarathex considered the suggestion. Everything about it went against traditional military thinking, but then again, everything about this alliance defied conventional wisdom. "Show me the tactical breakdown," she commanded. Commander Kim manipulated the holographic display to show a new battle plan. Instead of massing their forces for a single decisive engagement, the Allied fleet would split into hundreds of small task forces. Each group would contain ships from multiple species, creating tactical flexibility that no single species could achieve alone. "Human stealth technology with Veltar firepower," Kim explained. "Crystal being harmonic weapons guided by drift collective phase-shifting abilities. Mechanical intelligence coordination networks supporting organic tactical improvisation." The plan was audacious. Task forces would hit shadow supply lines, communication arrays, and isolated fleet elements simultaneously across dozens of star systems. The Shadow Fleet's size advantage would become a liability as they tried to defend territory scattered across half the galaxy. "What about their star-eating weapons?" asked Ambassador Vexithul. Whisper of Stars colors shifted to bright blue and silver, excitement and discovery. Drift Collective can phase-shift stellar material away from consumption devices, turn their own weapons into tactical traps. The hive clusters can establish communication networks faster than shadow jamming capabilities, added the insectoid delegate. Queen Mind coordination enables real-time tactical adaptation. Theorem Prime projected new calculations. Combined species capabilities create 847% tactical multiplication effect. Small unit effectiveness exceeds large fleet predictions by substantial margins. Zarathex felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries. Genuine excitement about going into battle. For the first time since the shadow threat emerged, they weren't just trying to survive. They were planning to win. "There's something else," Admiral Chen said quietly. "Our intelligence division has made a discovery about shadow technology." Dr. Martinez. The human scientist activated a new display showing detailed analysis of captured shadow equipment. "We've determined that shadow technology is actually adapted from conquered species. They don't innovate. They assimilate and optimize." The implications hit the chamber like a shockwave. "That means," Zarathex said slowly, "they have no defense against truly new tactics." "Exactly," Dr. Martinez confirmed. "Every species they've conquered fought using variants of the same basic military doctrines. Large fleets, territorial control, resource-based warfare. They've never encountered cooperative multi-species tactics because such cooperation has never existed before." Theorem Prime's analysis matrix hummed with activity. Shadow adaptive algorithms require baseline tactical patterns for optimization. Unprecedented cooperation creates null-state scenarios. Their strategic AI cannot process genuinely novel approaches. The hive delegates' chittering translated to something resembling laughter. Queen suggests Shadow Fleet is like single-mind hunter facing cooperative hive. Individual intelligence cannot match collective adaptation. Whisper of Stars pulsed with rainbow colors indicating deep satisfaction. Drift Collective agrees. Shadows consume civilizations like cosmic parasites. Parasites cannot survive when host organisms cooperate effectively. Zarathex realized that the humans had done more than propose an alliance. They had fundamentally altered the nature of galactic civilization itself. For the first time in recorded history, dozens of species were thinking and acting as a single entity while maintaining their individual strengths. "Admiral Chen," she said formally, "the Veltar Empire officially requests that humanity take operational command of the Allied fleet." The request shocked everyone, including Admiral Chen herself. No empire in galactic history had ever voluntarily ceded military authority to another species. "Your Majesty," Chen replied carefully, "that's an incredible honor, but perhaps a joint command structure would be more appropriate." "No," Zarathek said firmly. "Humans created this alliance. Your species turned enemies into allies, showed us how to fight together instead of alone. The Shadow Fleet expects to face the Veltar Empire. Instead, they'll face something that has never existed before, a truly unified galactic defense." Ambassador Vexthol's harmonic tones indicated agreement. Crystalline hegemony supports human command authority. Their tactical innovations exceed our individual capabilities. One by one, the other species' delegates voice their agreement. The mechanical intelligences calculated optimal command efficiency. The Drift Collective praised human adaptability. The Hive clusters compared human coordination to their own Queen Mind networks. Admiral Chen stood, her expression reflecting the weight of the responsibility being placed on her shoulders. "If we're going to do this, we do it right. No species gets left behind. No tactics are off limits, and no Shadow Fleet element gets ignored. How do we coordinate attacks across dozens of star systems simultaneously?" asked General Crystal. Theorem Prime's response was immediate. "Mechanical intelligence networks will provide instantaneous communication. Quantum entanglement allows real-time coordination regardless of distance. The Drift Collective can provide rapid transportation between battle zones," added Whisper of Stars. "Phase shift capabilities enable tactical redeployment faster than shadow response times." As the various species began coordinating their unique abilities, Zarathek felt a profound shift in her understanding of what was possible. The Shadow Fleet wasn't just facing an alliance. They were facing evolution in action, the birth of something entirely new in galactic history. The first phase of Operation Mosaic began at exactly 800 Standard Galactic Time, across 17 different star systems. Zarathek watched from the command center of Starbase Harmony as hundreds of small task forces launched coordinated strikes against Shadow Fleet elements that had been scattered across their expanding territory. Admiral Chen stood at the central command podium, surrounded by holographic displays showing real-time battle data from across the galaxy. Her calm demeanor masked the incredible complexity of coordinating 47 different species in simultaneous combat operations. "Whisper Group Alpha, you're clear for phase shift insertion behind Shadow Formation Tango 7, Chen commanded, speaking to a Drift Collective task force preparing to phase through space itself to strike shadow ships from an impossible angle. Crystal Harmony Squadron, initiate resonance disruption on Shadow Communication Array Delta 4. Use the harmonic frequencies Dr. Martinez calculated specifically for their hull composition." The holographic displays showed the first results of their unprecedented tactics. In the Rigel system, a combined human Veltar task force had successfully destroyed a shadow supply convoy using swarm tactics that confused enemy targeting systems completely. The shadow ships had fired thousands of shots at phantom contacts while the real attackers remained undetected. In the Vega sector, crystalline hegemony ships had used their harmonic weapons to literally shake shadow vessels apart at the molecular level, a tactic that bypassed their shields entirely, because the shadows had never encountered sonic-based weaponry. Theorem Prime. Status report on the Centauri engagement, Admiral Chen requested. The mechanical intelligence's response came through the quantum communication network. Mechanical units successfully infiltrated Shadow Command Vessel. Viral subroutines installed in their tactical computers. Enemy response coordination decreased by 67%. Hive cluster communications jamming prevents shadow adaptation. Zarathek marveled at the effectiveness of the coordinated assault. Each species was contributing their unique abilities in ways that created exponential advantages. The shadows were designed to counter traditional military tactics, but they had no protocols for dealing with crystalline beings that could phase shift through their shields or insectoid swarms that communicated faster than their jamming technology could adapt. "My queen," General Crichstill approached with a datapad showing casualty reports. Our losses are minimal compared to projections. 3% casualties versus the predicted 15–20%. The numbers were remarkable. By avoiding traditional fleet engagements and using coordinated small unit tactics, they were inflicting massive damage on the Shadow Fleet while sustaining losses that would have been considered impossible in conventional warfare. Admiral, Commander Kim called out from her station, "We're getting reports from the outer rim sectors. Shadow Fleet elements are beginning to consolidate their positions. They're adapting faster than we anticipated." Admiral Chen frowned as new data appeared on the displays. The Shadow Fleet was indeed learning from the initial attacks. Their scattered formations were pulling back toward more defensible positions, and their tactical computers were beginning to identify patterns in the Allied attacks. "Show me their new positions," Chen commanded. The star map revealed that the Shadow Fleet was abandoning their advanced positions and forming defensive clusters around key strategic points, major star systems, resource-rich nebulae, and communication hubs. "They're trying to force us into traditional battles," Zarathex observed. "By concentrating their forces, they're hoping to negate our small unit advantages." Whisper of stars materialized in their containment field near the command station, colors shifting rapidly through concern and calculation. Drift Collective observes shadow adaptation follows predictable patterns. They assume unified response based on previous conquest experiences. Theorem Prime's mechanical voice added through the speakers. Shadow strategic algorithms predict Allied forces will attempt to match their concentration. Standard galactic military doctrine suggests escalation to fleet engagement. Admiral Chen smiled grimly. "Then we don't give them what they expect." "Dr. Martinez, how quickly can we implement protocol divergence?" Dr. Martinez looked up from her research station with excitement. "The calculations are ready. We can begin immediately if the other species agree to the enhanced coordination requirements." "What is protocol divergence?" Zarathex asked. "Instead of escalating to match their concentration, we split into even smaller units," Admiral Chen explained. "Micro-swarms of 3 to 5 ships, each containing representatives from different species. We'll hit them with so many simultaneous attacks that their tactical computers won't be able to process the data fast enough to respond effectively." The concept was staggering. They were proposing to fragment their forces into thousands of tiny groups, each operating independently but in coordination with the larger plan. "The risk is enormous," General Crichstill pointed out. "If any group gets caught by concentrated shadow forces, they'll be destroyed instantly. But the potential gains are equally enormous," Commander Kim added, pulling up tactical projections. "If we can successfully coordinate thousands of micro-attacks simultaneously, we can hit every shadow position at once. They won't be able to defend everything." Ambassador Vexthul's harmonic voice filled the chamber. "Crystalline hegemony calculates acceptable risk levels. Our deep space sensors can provide early warning for micro-swarm groups. Shadows cannot surprise what they cannot approach undetected." The Hive delegates' chittering translated to, "Queen Minds approve micro-swarm concept. Resembles natural hunting patterns of apex hive hunters. Individual units vulnerable but collective action overwhelming." Zarathex considered the proposal. Everything about it violated traditional military wisdom. But then again, traditional military wisdom had never stopped the Shadow Fleet before. "How do we coordinate thousands of independent units without creating communication vulnerabilities?" she asked. Theorem Prime's response was immediate. "Quantum entanglement communication protocols already established. Each microswarm receives real-time updates through untraceable quantum channels. Coordination maintained without centralized vulnerability." Admiral Chen turned to face the assembled species representatives. "This is our chance to end the shadow threat permanently. They're expecting us to fight like every other species they've conquered. Instead, we're going to show them what cooperation really means." The holographic display changed to show the proposed attack pattern. Thousands of tiny fleet groups would emerge from hyperspace simultaneously across dozens of star systems. Each group would target specific shadow assets, command ships, communication arrays, supply depots, and weapon manufacturing facilities. "The beauty of it is that even if they detect some of our groups, they can't respond to all of them," Dr. Martinez explained. "Their tactical computers will suffer from what we call decision paralysis. Too many targets requiring immediate response. Not enough resources to address them all. Whisper of stars pulsed with colors indicating excitement and anticipation. Drift collective volunteers for deepest penetration missions. Phase shift capabilities allow strikes against Shadow Core facilities. Mechanical intelligence networks will coordinate timing across all groups, added Theorem Prime. Simultaneous attacks ensure maximum disruption before shadow adaptation. Possible. Zarathex realized that they were about to attempt something that had never been tried in galactic history, a truly coordinated attack by multiple species using each civilization's unique abilities in perfect harmony. When do we begin? She asked. Admiral Chen checked the chronometer. Microswarm formation begins in 6 hours. All species representatives have 4 hours to brief their units on the new protocols. At 1400 Standard Time, we find out if cooperation really can defeat conquest. As the various species representatives dispersed to prepare their forces, Zarathex found herself alone with Admiral Chen and Dr. Martinez. "Admiral," she said quietly, "if this works, you'll have changed the course of galactic history." Chen smiled. "Your Majesty, we already have. 6 months ago, your empire was running from the Shadow Fleet, and my species had never encountered alien life. Now look at us. Win or lose, we've proven that cooperation is possible on a scale nobody thought achievable." Dr. Martinez added, "The real victory isn't defeating the shadows, though that would be nice. The real victory is showing the galaxy that there's an alternative to conquest and assimilation. We've created something new." Zarathex nodded, understanding the profound truth in their words. Regardless of the outcome of Operation Mosaic, the galaxy would never be the same. The age of isolated civilizations was ending, replaced by something unprecedented: true galactic cooperation. The Shadow flagship Entropy's Edge emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Sol system, with its escort of 200 vessels, expecting to find a panicked human homeworld desperately preparing its defenses. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented in their centuries of conquest. Perfect silence. No emergency broadcasts. No frantic military communications. No signs of panic whatsoever. Zarathex stood beside Admiral Chen in the command center of Starbase Harmony, watching as the Shadow Fleet approached Earth. The massive holographic display showed the enemy formation in perfect detail, their dark ships moving in the precise geometric patterns that had brought terror to countless worlds. "They're scanning for our defensive positions," Commander Kim reported, "but they're not detecting anything. The quantum scramblers are working perfectly." Dr. Martinez smiled grimly from her station. "They're looking for traditional orbital platforms and fleet formations. They have no idea what they're actually facing." The reality was that Sol System's defenses had been completely reimagined, using technologies and tactics from all 47 Alliance species. Instead of massive space stations and obvious fleet positions, the system was protected by thousands of virtually invisible micro-platforms, stealth fields generated by human drift collective hybrid technology, and weapon systems that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Shadow Fleet is maintaining approach vector toward Earth," Admiral Chen observed. "They're following standard conquest protocol. Eliminate the homeworld to break species morale." Theorem Prime's mechanical voice filled the chamber. "Shadow tactical scans incomplete. Enemy sensors detecting 0.3% of actual defensive installations. Quantum scrambler networks exceed performance predictions by 847%. Whisper of stars materialized beside the command station, their containment field pulsing with colors indicating anticipation and fierce joy. Drift collective phase detection confirms Shadow flagship contains their primary command intelligence. Destruction of this vessel would eliminate Shadow coordination across all conquered territories. The implications were staggering. The Shadow fleet wasn't just attacking Sol system. They were bringing their central command structure within range of Alliance weapons. "My queen," General Crixtal approached with the latest reports from the galaxy-wide battle. "Microswarm operations have achieved total success in 38 systems. Shadow fleet cohesion is collapsing across their entire territory. They're losing everything," Zarathex realized. "This attack on Earth isn't strategy, it's desperation." Admiral Chen nodded. "They're hoping that destroying Earth and the Alliance command structure will somehow allow them to regain control of the situation. It's the last gamble of an empire that's never faced genuine resistance before." The Shadow fleet was now entering the inner system, passing through the asteroid belt, where human mining operations had been converted into the first line of defense. Still no visible response from the Allied forces. Asteroid mining platforms activating, Commander Kim announced. Phase 1 defensive sequence beginning. What the Shadow Fleet encountered as they moved through the asteroid belt defied their understanding of warfare. The mining platforms they had dismissed as harmless industrial equipment suddenly revealed themselves as massive kinetic weapon systems, asteroids that had been hollowed out and equipped with Veltar gravity. Manipulators began accelerating toward the enemy, formation at velocities that made them nearly impossible to track, but these weren't random projectiles. Each asteroid had been equipped with crystalline hegemony harmonic guidance systems that allowed them to adjust their trajectories in flight, and drift collective phase shifters that let them appear and disappear from normal space to avoid enemy countermeasures. First contact, Admiral Chen announced as the opening salvo struck the Shadow. Fleet. 12 enemy vessels were destroyed instantly as asteroids materialized directly inside their shields and detonated with the force of small nuclear weapons. The Shadow Fleet formation scattered, trying to adapt to weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. Phase 2, defensive sequence, Admiral Chen commanded. The space around Earth erupted with activity as thousands of previously invisible defensive platforms revealed themselves. But these weren't traditional weapon systems. They were hybrid technologies that combined the best innovations from dozens of species. Crystalline hegemony resonance weapons created harmonic frequencies that literally shook shadow ships apart at the molecular level. Mechanical intelligence viral programs, transmitted through quantum-entangled particles, began corrupting shadow computer systems faster than their adaptive algorithms could compensate. Hive cluster swarm drones, each no larger than a human fist but coordinated by quantum-linked hive minds, began infiltrating shadow ships through microscopic breaches in their hulls. Shadow Fleet attempting to retreat, Theorem Prime reported. Hyperspace jump calculations failing due to drift collective phase disruption fields. Whisper of stars pulsed with rainbow colors indicating satisfaction. Phase space sealed. Shadow vessels trapped in normal space. Escape impossible. The Shadow Fleet found themselves in an impossible situation. They couldn't retreat because the Alliance had learned to disrupt hyperspace itself. They couldn't advance because Earth's defenses exceeded anything they had ever encountered. And they couldn't maintain their position because micro-attacks were systematically destroying their ships. Incoming transmission from the Shadow flagship, Commander Kim announced. Admiral Chen looked surprised. They want to communicate? That's unprecedented. The holographic display shimmered and resolved into the image of the Shadow Fleet commander. The being was unlike anything in the Alliance databases. A creature of living darkness with eyes like dying stars, and a presence that seemed to absorb light itself. Alliance of species, the creature spoke, its voice like the sound of worlds ending. We offer terms for cessation of hostilities. The command center fell silent. In their entire history, the Shadow Fleet had never offered terms to anyone. They conquered or destroyed with no middle ground. Admiral Chen stepped forward. What terms? Withdraw your forces from Shadow territory. Cease interference with our conquests. In exchange, we will not destroy your homeworlds. The offer was exactly what Zarathex had expected, the same ultimatum the Shadows had given to countless species before annihilating them. Counter-proposal, Admiral Chen replied calmly. You withdraw from all conquered territories, release all enslaved populations, and cease all military operations. In exchange, we won't finish destroying your fleet. The Shadow Commander's form flickered with what might have been surprise or rage. You cannot be serious. We are the dominant force in this galaxy. We have conquered thousands of species. You were dominant, Admiral Chen corrected. But you've never faced cooperation before. You've never dealt with species that share technology, coordinate tactics, and fight together instead of alone. Dr. Martinez stepped beside Admiral Chen. We've studied your empire extensively. You succeed through assimilation and adaptation of conquered technologies, but you can't assimilate cooperation. You can't adapt to genuine unity between species. The Shadow Commander seemed to consider this. Your unity is temporary. When the immediate threat is ended, you will return to your individual conflicts. All species eventually betray each other. Zarathex moved forward, her 6 eyes focused on the dark creature. That's where you're wrong. You've created something you never intended. You've given us a reason to be permanently united. As long as the Shadow Fleet exists, the Alliance will exist to oppose you. Whisper of stars pulsed with deep blue and silver. Colors the translation matrix indicated meant profound satisfaction. Drift Collective observes truth. Cooperation is no longer strategy. Cooperation has become evolution. The Shadow Commander's image began to flicker and distort as their ship's systems failed under continued Alliance attacks. This is impossible. We are inevitable. We have conquered civilizations across the galaxy for millennia. You conquered civilizations that fought alone. Theorem Prime's voice added through the communication system. You have never conquered civilization itself. Cooperation transcends individual species limitations. Unity creates capabilities greater than sum of component parts. The final words came from the Hive delegate, transmitted through the quantum networks to all Alliance forces simultaneously. Queen minds understand ultimate truth. Shadow Fleet seeks to consume Galaxy, but Galaxy now possesses immune system. Alliance is evolutionary response to conquest paradigm. As the Shadow flagship finally succumbed to the coordinated assault, its destruction marked more than just a military victory. The blast that consumed Entropy's Edge illuminated a fundamental change in galactic civilization itself. Status report on galaxy-wide operations. Admiral Chen requested. All Shadow Fleet elements destroyed or surrendered, Commander Kim announced. 47 systems liberated. Previously conquered species requesting Alliance membership. Zarathex looked around the command center at the representatives of dozens of species working together in perfect coordination. The humans had indeed created something unprecedented. Not just a military alliance, but a new form of civilization based on cooperation rather than conquest. Admiral Chen, she said formally. What do we do now? The human smiled and